Hello, and welcome to another conversation with Carl. Remember, if you would like immediate access to all the latest content, like and subscribe. Today, we're excited to welcome Karen Thomas. Karen is a certified etiquette educator celebrating 20 plus years of success as a college lecturer, expert, media resource, and corporate trainer. Karen is the author of Poised, Polished Professional, The Expert's Guide to Executive Presence, which is available on Amazon. Welcome, Karen Thomas, to the conversation.
Hello, how are you? Happy to be here.
So excited to talk to you because I think etiquette is a big issue that everyone has all the time. But let me start by asking, many people use the word polished to describe people they feel present well to the world. How do you define polished? And can you give us some examples?
Absolutely. So, polished is when you are well put together and you know it not just visually with the way you dress and you present yourself, but also mentally. And that is something huge. You may be going to like an interview and you are, of course, going to be nervous. But again, you need to make sure that when you're, going into situations like this, you are prepared physically, mentally, and emotionally. So polished is that in that definition.
How do you become polished?
Well, you need to do research. You need to know who you are yourself. How do you want to present to the world? How do you want to present yourself to somebody in an interview or when you go to a networking event or just going anywhere? What do you want to exude? And that becomes a mindset. Sometimes, we get up and we say to ourselves, oh, it's a dreary day and I don't want to do this and I don't feel like dressing or whatever. And sometimes that dictates what we put forth to the world. If you're going to, especially special events, even like a wedding or an interview or anything with business, you want to make sure you're in the right mindset. Jackie was a perfect example, I think, of, and I could give, gentlemen's examples as well, but of somebody who was always poised, polished, and professional when she went out into the world. She was always dressed appropriately. She was very soft spoken, but she knew how to speak, what to speak about, when to speak. And these are big things now in society that I think we all struggle with.
I was talking earlier today about going to Broadway. People don't dress up anymore. When you went to the theater, you used to dress up. When you went on a plane, you used to dress up.
Yes. Our society has gone backwards so much over the last, I'm going to say 20, 25 years. And it's unfortunate. And I think that people just don't take pride in themselves. And again, what they're presenting to the world. And I don't know when that happened. If you look back at the 50s, 60s, and I think around the 70s, we started to go downhill with like dressing. And again, it's what you're putting forward in the world. And you are so right about airplanes. I see people going in and, it doesn't mean you can't be comfortable. But again, it doesn't mean you need to be slovenly either. You know what I'm saying? Slippers, pajama pants, even just going out shopping. Years ago in the 60s, I remember seeing my parents in like a three-piece suit and, my mother had a skirt. I mean, again, we're going way back, but again, they had more pride in what they put out there. And I think our level of professionalism and presence has really gone downhill, unfortunately. But you know what? That's why I have a job. So
Are there different customs in different parts of the US for etiquette?
there is, and I'm from the New England states here, and a lot of people say that or label us that we are unfriendly, we're not polite, we're rude. And then versus down, say, down south, Tennessee, down that way, they're much more professional, they're much more welcoming. They're not rude. So again, I guess it depends on who you are and who you ask. Again, it's six dozen half the other. But I have noticed overall as a society, we have lost our way as far as etiquette is concerned.
Well, I would say New Yorkers, as I am a New Yorker, I would say that we are not rude. We are just very abrupt.
Yes, and to the point.
Yes, we want to the point, but we're not rude. And I don't think we're rude. I think Seinfeld did an episode where where they're on the subway and everyone gives directions. And I
Yes.
think that, and to this day, if I'm on the subway and someone asks for directions, everybody jumps in.
Yes, yes,
Yes, everyone jumps in and everyone tells you this is the right way to go, and people will start arguing, but it's
yes.
not but it is helpful. How is Europe and the rest of the world different in etiquette?
Well, I think, it depends on the culture. Everybody has a different culture where they are. I have been told from several people that I have, from my family's from Italy, but from people in my daughter goes all the time. She travels to Italy and she finds that it is a lot different than here. That people are a little more reserved over there and they respect customs and more etiquette than we do over here. At least that's what she's told me. I've never been over there. So again, I'm just using her standpoint. But, it depends on the culture. If you go to Tokyo, again, it's all different and they have different expectations than what is expected in the United States. So it's a difficult way to measure it unless you've been there. But I think we all have different views on that. When people come over to visit here, are they rude? Are they not? Or they're looking at us. Are we rude? Are we not? It's six doesn't have the other.
Let's talk about a restaurant. You're sitting with your friends. There's three of you. You drink a Diet Coke. Everyone else has two glasses of wine. How do you split the bill? And how do you do it politely?
Politely, exactly. Well, I always tell people when you're going to a restaurant, a couple things first. If it's for business, there's two separate sides. So there's personal and business. If it's for business, whoever invited pays. So let's say I invite you and it's for business, you're a client or you're a colleague, okay, but I invite you, you should expect that I'm going to pay, whether it's two glasses of wine, whatever it is. But if it's for personal, let's just say you and I are buddies, we're going to go out. I always tell people to make sure that they decide who is going to pay or how it's going to go down ahead of time, even if it's at the table before they order. So you and I are buddies. We're just going to go out and I'll say, you know what, Carl, I'll pick up the tab. Okay. So that way you're not expecting anything. And you know what? If you drink two or three glasses of wine, fine. But let's say there's a group of us and it's personal and we're all going out and now the bill comes. Nobody's discussed it, right? Now the bill comes and you only had maybe a little salad and a Diet Coke, like you said, and somebody else had three glasses of wine. She had two martinis. It's okay to say, we could do a couple things. We could split the bill, but that won't be fair to you because you didn't have as much to eat or drink and your bill will be a lot cheaper. Or we could just say, let's have separate bills. But I always say it's better to discuss this ahead of time because you don't want that waiter or waitress to come over and say to you, now, there's five of you. Now I got to split it. You should have told me at the beginning. Again, make sure you're well prepared when you go in and do it right when you're ordering and decide that right then and there. So that way everybody knows and there's no surprises. Maybe I didn't bring my credit card. And I'm looking at you going, oh, gee, Carl, I thought you were going to pick it up. And you know what I mean? So get it all squared away from the beginning. That way there's no hurt feelings at the end.
And what happens when the bill comes and you're tipping and you're divided the bill and then you tip 20% and then you notice your friend tips 10% or
Well,
15%?
that's a difficult one, especially to bring up to somebody. Again, you don't want to hurt their feelings, but what I usually do, and again, as an etiquette educator, this is what I do. I make sure that I get the bill as the last person and I make up for that. So let's say you only put in 10%. I usually try to make up for that. So it's 20 across the board, at least 20 or more. And, on the restaurant tipping part, it's good to know this too, Carl, is that when you go in there, you want to look at the service, you want to see. But again, what you should do if you had bad service is not take it out on the server. See what the actual situation was. Was it really the server's fault? Was it that the food came out late from the cooks? You know what I mean? Again, whose fault was it? And I always tell people rather than take it out on a tip with the person, I always tell them to ask for a manager to see if it's something that could be corrected. So you say to the manager, you know what, we waited, 20 minutes for our drinks, then we made another half an hour for our food, whatever. Talk to the manager. They have the authority to correct the problem or deduct from the bill rather than just punishing the waiter wait staff. Now, let's say that the wait staff was just rude. They rushed you along. They really weren't. It really was their fault. Then, of course, you naturally can, go a little bit less on the tipping. But I always say to always talk to the manager to see if they can rectify the situation before you go, full fledged. I'm not leaving a tip.
Let's talk about thank you notes.
Yes, this is a lost art, huh?
This is a lost art because we could talk about thank you notes for a friend who does something nice for you, and then we can go into bar and bat mitzvah and wedding etiquette. But let's start with just regular thank you notes. People
Yes,
just, what am I supposed to do? Someone gives me a holiday gift, a
sure.
birthday gift. Do I write a personal note? Do I write a thank you note? An email is as a text okay?
Okay, so I would say it depends upon the situation. There's all kinds of situations. If somebody, it's a casual thing, you had us over for dinner, I brought you a gift, and you want to just send me a quick text, send me a quick text. I would say email, I would save that more for professional. Like if it's a business type of that, I would use the email. But again, going back to let's say a birthday party. I always say, always send a note and handwritten. So it doesn't have to be fancy. It could just be a plain, maybe you have stationery with your name on the top, or maybe you just go to, let's say, the dollar store and just get plain thank you cards. Take those and just write something out. Again, I say it's a lost art because people just don't tend to do that anymore. I've always made my children do it. Now my grandchildren are doing it, but I rarely see any come back in return. So I just think that people are kind of just fluffing it off. But I will say this, if you don't do anything handwritten, and at least do the text, bare minimum do the text or the
Yeah.
email. So there's just an acknowledgement of gratitude beyond the point where I gave you the gift.
When I turned 13 and I had my bar mitzvah, my mom forced me to
Yeah.
write thank you notes. And we've just gone through this with my daughter, but I've not seen a lot of thank you notes from people.
I'm telling you, it's very, very rare. And when I do kids classes, for example, I get usually like one, card sent to me later on, and it's got all the kids' signatures and everything like that. But I'll tell you that as far as like gift giving, I rarely see any come. I have one colleague at my office who is exemplary in this. He always writes thank you notes for everything and anything. And I said, I said, you're not an etiquette expert or an educator. I said, but you know what? You're right on the ball with all of that. Sometimes he's a good example for a lot of people. And again, I think too, it also is how did you grow up? Like you said, your parents made you do this. So again, how did you grow up? Did your parents do this as well? Maybe they didn't. Maybe, that has some play in it as well. But I think thank you notes really should be done, whether it's written, whether it's verbally, or whether it's via email or text. It should be acknowledged.
Well, I would always write you a thank you note because you are an etiquette coach and you would
Right.
be expecting it.
Right. Right.
Like you have to get my, for other people, I might not, but for you, I'd be like, well, I got to write.
I better do this.
I
Right.
better do this for you because you'll know.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about giving gifts for coworkers for the holidays because I think this is
Sure.
a big issue. Do you give your boss a gift? Do you give colleagues a gift?
Absolutely. This is a good one. So, on a professional level, you should not give an individual gift to your boss. So, let's say you and I work in the IT department, there's six of us, and then we have a boss that we all report to. It would be inappropriate for me to buy our boss a gift, whether it's a gift card or whatever. It would be inappropriate to do it. What it should be done as is collectively. So, all six of us, if we're going to decide to do this, again, the six of us sit down and decide that we're going to do this. It might, one person might not want to. So it's just the five of us. But again, never give a gift to your boss solely. Now, the exception being, I'm the boss and you're my only employee and you decide to give me, well, okay, fine, that's different. But again, it could be misconstrued as, a little bit of brown nosing. You're buying a gift and, oh, look at Karen. She's buying a gift for our boss and the rest of them, we're not, makes us look bad. So again, I always say that if you work for somebody collectively together, if it's a group, do that. If it's a single person and single boss, absolutely. But don't make it too personal. Don't get into, anything that would infringe upon their personal things. I don't mean anything like a monogram towel or something like that. That absolutely, or monogram stationery, that's great. But I mean, personal side of, family, I would stay away from that. Keep it pretty informal. Colleagues, you could buy for your colleagues if you get along with, your buddy and you and Joe go out all the time or you guys are friends outside. Absolutely buy him something. You don't have to buy for everybody in the office. And again, it depends on how well you know each other and the relationships that you foster in the business.
Now, how do you give gifts for friends?
For friends on the outside, so, any holidays, for friends, it's how well you know them. And it's funny you mentioned this because this is also for weddings, it kind of crosses over. It's how well you know the person. So, if you're best friends and let's say, you've always bought gifts for each other, great. But let's say you haven't always bought gifts. And then all of a sudden this year you decided you were going to get something. Give the gift in which it was intended. So let's say, you guys have been best friends. You and John have been best friends for the longest time. You never bought each other, Hanukkah gifts or Christmas gifts or, Kwanzaa gifts, none of that. But this year you saw something, you went out there and you said, you know what? I know he would love this. I'm just going to buy it. Okay. And again, nothing expensive, but you bought it and now you give it to him. And now he's looking at you kind of feeling awkward, like, well, I didn't get you anything. We've never done this. Explain it. Just say, you know what? I saw this. I thought that you would love this. And so I picked it up. No gift intended back. Please don't feel funny about it. I just thought you'd really like that. And, make the other person not feel bad about the fact that you got them something. And, there's always ways to explain these things. And again, you don't want to give a gift and make anybody feel bad about receiving the gift or bad about getting the gift. You want to make sure that it's given, just with gratitude. Hey, I was thinking of you. We did this. Don't worry about it. I'm not expecting anything in return. I knew you'd love this.
Yeah.
And take it in which the context in which it was given.
And then let's talk about opening doors, closing doors for people, getting
Yes.
up at a restaurant, pulling the seat out for a woman and then pushing it in. What are you supposed to do?
Absolutely. So, and especially with you being in New York, I wonder if you see this a lot. I have found that I just naturally open the door for somebody. The etiquette rule is this: it does not have to be the gentleman doing it. It's whoever gets there first is the one to open the door. So if I'm ahead of you and I get there, I should open the door for you. You should go in and then you should let me go first. So in other words, we're at a coffee shop. I open the door, go ahead. And I don't know who you are. Thank you. You say, you go ahead. Then you should say, now as I walk in, here, you go ahead. You should, reciprocate. We're finding that a lot of people aren't doing that. We're finding that a lot of people are posting too on social media saying, hey, if I open the door for you, you better say thank you. It's just a nicety. Takes what? Half a second to say thank you. So I think we should watch our P's and Q's there and make sure that we are being polite at all times. Somebody does something nice for you, absolutely acknowledge it. And you want to make sure that you're doing that.
Well, it makes me crazy when I go into a store and I open up a door and then someone just walks out and they
Yes.
just keep talking. And then,
Yes.
like, they didn't even notice that someone opened the door for them. And
Yes.
that makes me nuts.
Exactly. And, and people have even gone so far as to say, excuse me, I just opened the door for you. I had an incident, believe it or not, this morning. We were in the coffee shop and the gentleman went in and he kind of cut around everybody. Like someone was holding the door. We went in, said, thank you. This gentleman didn't, I don't know if he was oblivious. I'm not really sure what happened, but he kind of like went around the line and jumped in front of everybody. The people standing behind me were like, did you see that? Did you see that? That made this big kerfuffle. And it was funny. And as the gentleman was leaving, he got his stuff and he was walking out. And the lady behind me tapped him and she said, sir, there was a line here. There were people ahead of you. And he said, oh, I just didn't. I'm sorry. He says, I just didn't. And again, they were quite upset that he was rude enough to cut in front of all of us. I just let it go. I didn't think it was a big deal, but the people behind me were not too happy. So again, I mean, choose your battles, I always say.
Yeah.
You don't want somebody to come back after you later again, but do thank them, especially in, you're in a coffee shop or bank, anywhere, grocery store. Somebody opens that door, definitely say thank you.
When you're on the street, which side, if you're a man, which side are you supposed to walk on with
And
a
again, gentlemen, we going back to way back, nice etiquette. The gentleman should be on the street side, kind of protecting the women, so to speak. If it's a bunch of guys going down, doesn't matter. But again, always protecting the lady. And it's only in that case that they're kind of, being a protective side. Now, you'll get some etiquette educators who will argue that point saying it doesn't matter. But I'm old school. I always go with the protection and they should be on the street side.
Okay. And then you just brought up social media.
Yes.
When you look at social media, people are living their best lives on social media. It's probably not realistic and real.
Right.
How does social media play into etiquette today?
Goodness. You know, Unfortunately, I have to, this is what I tell everybody. I think that social media in general is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in that, and let's just use Facebook, for example. Facebook is great. I get to catch up with friends that I don't see from high school or, long lost relatives. I think it's great. But the curse comes in where you have people that feel that they can become, dark keyboard warriors where they can just go on there and just bash and make nasty comments and be rude. So I think it's, again, blessing and a curse. It's great for some things. It's bad for others, especially businesses on social media, going on there. Let's say, this morning you went into a coffee shop and, they were having a rough day behind the counter, whatever. It took a little longer, this and that, to immediately go on social media and onto Yelp or, another site there and bash people without really having visited there several times or knowing the situation. Again, it could be a blessing and a curse. And a lot of times people leaving bad reviews for silly little things. Now, let's say they spilled the coffee on you, they were rude, they didn't, say sorry, this and that. I mean, definitely. But again, before you go home, I always say to people and leave a bad review, step back, think about the situation, think about, were you a part of the problem? Were they the total problem? Take a breath.
Yeah.
Take a breath. And then, give yourself time to calm down and then put your review or whatever. But, put yourself in somebody else's situation before that you do that and just don't go off,
You do that
leaving
with
bad reviews.
you do that with emails too. You never write an email, write it. You wait 24 hours before your
Always.
reaction. You never.
Always. And I had that a couple of weeks ago. I had some people come back to me about an issue that was going on with something with etiquette. And they were just going back and forth, back and forth. And then, it got out of control. And I was so angry. And I was just about to type and go. And then I said, what? I'm going to put it aside. I walked away from it for about 2 hours and then revisited it, read the emails, and then responded. And I'm glad I did because the first email that was about to come off of my fingers was not a very good one.
Let's talk about the phone. There are times you go to a restaurant and everybody, I have mine right here,
Yep, right.
everyone's doing that and no one's talking to each other.
Right. And it's become the norm rather than not. Okay. So I always do this. I tell my kids, when you go in, you make sure that you don't put the phone on the table. There's no place for that phone on the table at a restaurant. Okay. It should be in your pocket if you're a gentleman, or it should be under your napkin on your lap if you're a lady. When you go in there, you want to check it. I would always say if you're in a business meeting, that's fine. You want to check it, but just say to the person you're dining with, you know what, Carl, I'm going to check my phone because I'm waiting for an email to come through, or I'm going to check my phone in a little bit because I'm waiting for something. Let them know. Don't be sneaky about it and look under the table. The people that think that they can't see you as you have the phone on your lap under the table. Don't be silly. They could see, they know what you're doing. Same thing in a conference room. Don't think that nobody's looking at you in a conference room when you're going with your head down under a table. Make sure that you know when it is appropriate, time and place. It is not appropriate to have it on the table and check it 50 times while we're in a business meeting. But you could get up, excuse yourself, and go check it in the men's room or the ladies' room or what have you, or outside. Again, just make sure you're being polite to the people who you're dining with or who you're meeting with, and make sure that you're doing all the proper things so they want to be in your company again. Because if you've buried your head in the phone in that whole meeting and you didn't look up maybe twice, not too good.
We're talking a lot about etiquette. How do we bring etiquette back?
It's a tough one, and I think it goes back to, and hear me out on this. I could be very, very old school, but hear me out. I think it goes back to a time and place where family dynamics were different, right? Once upon a time, there was both mom and the dad worked, the mom didn't work, the mom was home, raised the kids, whatever. We've gone, aside from that over the past several years, and now both parents are working, or now there's a lot of single parent homes where there's the father raising the children, or just the mother. Again, we've gotten away from it, and it's not anything that was done wrong. Society has changed. You know what I'm saying? So we have adapted to those situations with etiquette. I grew up in a parent home because my mother and father were divorced. So there wasn't time to sit down every night. My mother had to work. There wasn't time to sit down. But one of the things that she did teach me was how to set a table. Where did the napkin go? And she instilled these things, write a thank you note. So again, I think we've come so far from that. And again, it goes with the dress codes too, where everything has changed over the last 20, 30 years. And there's people feel there's just not time for it. I call it a fast food society that we live in now. Everything is rushed. It's hurry up, go to this. We got to bring the kids to their activities. They've got this after, they got soccer. Mom's got a conference. She's got to go a meeting at night. I call it a fast food society where we're not sitting down to eat. We're not instilling values and things. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just a fast paced world that we live in.
So, is there a way to change that, or is it just a simple thank you to people and just a simple way to be courteous?
I think what people should do a little more often is this: just talk with your kids and your family, okay, about how can you be more polite or take the polite out of it. How can you be more civil in society? Use that. And again, just little things make a difference. And again, going back to holding the door, tell your children, instilling it in and above an early age is where we get it. We see a lot of teachers, complaining that, they can't teach because the kids are unruly, they're this and that. It goes back to the home where they came from. And,
Yeah.
you have to keep that in mind. It starts at home with the parents.
I always tell my daughter, you say thank you to the bus driver. And
Yes.
even when I get on the bus and off the bus, I say thank you to the
Yes.
bus driver because the bus driver will be nice to you if you're nice to him or her.
Absolutely. And you know what? You're on a trend with that. People will always feel appreciated and do more or be nicer to you when you initiate the nice to them. So
Yeah.
saying that, good morning, sir, good morning, ma'am, or whatever. I mean, that right there just makes them feel acknowledged, seen, and valued. And that's what we have to get back to is valuing each other. Maybe you're a stranger and you don't know the bus driver, but you know what? It's not going to hurt to say hi, thank you, or have a good day, or you know what I mean? Again, the power of polite is something that we need to get back to in society. It should be utilized every single day.
My aunt always tells a story, and it would make me laugh when I was younger, that she would go to the bus stop in the morning, say good morning to everybody, and then people would start talking to her, and then she realized she didn't want to talk to them.
Well, you sometimes get those chatty
Mm.
patties, and they mistake your kindness and for
Yeah,
oh, let's talk, and yeah, I mean that could be a problem too. But again, just cutting them off nicely.
yeah,
Oh, look at the time, I've got to go, or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
something like that. Always,
yeah.
don't be rude about it.
So as we wrap up, is there anything that I forgot to ask you or you want to tell me about that we should definitely touch on?
I mean, our final message should be is that, you get more gratitude and polite and all of that is what you put out into the world. So if you're putting that out there yourself, be the change. Be the person who says hello or holds the door or does something kind first, and you'd be amazed at what you get in return.
Yeah, it's what energy you put out there is what energy you get back.
Exactly. And again, don't always be quick to jump to conclusions. Somebody might be having a bad day. You don't know if something major just happened. They might have had a death in the family, whatever. Don't always jump to conclusions. Always, take your time, review the situation. And you know what? If you could just push it off as it was just they had a bad day, then do so and always be kind and polite.
Yeah. Karen Thomas, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you out there. I hope you got some tips. Let me know what you think as always. Put that in the comment section. And until next time, be safe, everyone.